Hey everybody, I want to take a really quick bit of time here to sort of clarify something. And I want to prefix this by saying this is completely my fault, okay? The entire understanding of the game and the responsibility to have a good understanding of how this game works is entirely on me to provide to you. So if you don't understand something, that's my fault, not yours. So I just want to prefix this by saying that, okay? With that out of the way, I have currently about 20 pending contracts for the KSP community career. I've interacted with about, I want to say 35 or so out of these nearly 70 RPOs we have in the game. And of the ones I've interacted with, I think maybe 3 of you kind of understand a little bit about how this works. So that's my fault. I want to clarify this and talk a little bit about how the knowledge system works. This is something that is new to the handbook. If you haven't downloaded the latest version of the handbook, it was updated yesterday. Also, the KSP changelog channel in Discord would have told you that. At this point in the game, really at this point in the whole thing, Discord is a requirement to participate. I wasn't going to make it a requirement, and I'm still not technically, but you are so severely handicapped without Discord being integrated with you playing the game that if you're not on Discord, like that handicap is going to basically cripple it to the point where you will not get the full experience. You won't even get half of it. So if you're not on the Discord yet to participate in this, or if you are participating and you're not on Discord is what I mean to say, you really should do that if you have any intention of playing the game. All right, so a couple of things. The knowledge system has always existed, but it hasn't been finalized, and it hasn't been clearly talked about. And I want to really get into this and emphasize how it works and how you gain knowledge in certain things and how you work towards goals for your organization. When I say the word RPO, I mean it's a role-playing organization, and organizations are organized. At least I would hope they are. And part of that organization is being focused on a goal, a mission. Your company has a mission. It's probably very specific. It could be broad, but the more specific you are, the more likely you are to succeed in that. And that applies to every single mission that you take in conquering, I almost said conquering Kerbal Space Program. See, it's still in my head. In conquering the community career. There you go. Every step you take should be towards a specific goal. So I want to go over some of the mistakes, and these are abundant. And I want to be clear. The mistakes that I'm going to talk about, they're not your fault. They're mine, right? I'm trying to clarify them now. The other thing is I'm not pointing at anyone specific, but a lot of you are going to look at this or are going to hear me say this and go, oh, that's me. I know. Like I said, about 90% of the contracts I'm getting right now are doing this. And I don't want you to do this because it's handicapping you, severely handicapping you. When episode 6 of this series comes out, you're going to see a great example of what I mean by you are not limited by the experiments in the game, okay? So first off, you are not limited by the experiments in the game, okay? Most of you who are submitting contracts are saying, I want a temperature scan, I want a pressure scan, but you have zero reason, at least stated, as to why you want that data. You're just like pointing out, I want all these experiments so I get as much knowledge as possible. That's not how it works with this. That's some of the differences. When I said this is a very different series, a very different career mode, I meant it not just for me, but also for you. Most of you are thinking in terms of playing KSP. I want all the science. It's just this vague science. But in this community career, not all science is the same. Here's a good example of what I mean. 2 RPOs, both send up the exact same craft. They pay the exact same amount of money. They both take a temperature scan in low Kerbal space. Very simple thing, right? Both of them said, I want temperature scan. But see, one of them didn't just say they wanted a temperature scan. One of them said that they were studying something specific and how temperature impacts that something specific, right? So they had experiments on their craft, and they designated, they told me in advance for that craft what they were studying. And so while the other one just said, I want temperature data, and learned that sometimes it's hot and sometimes it's cold, not that useful, but okay. The other one learned that, but also got data on biology and how temperature impacts biology. So they've got biology and chemistry data. They've also learned certain materials and the temperature rapid changes and the effects that has on certain materials. And so they've gained knowledge in electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, right? They understand a little bit more with fluid dynamics because of on their way up. They had atmospheric pressure scans that were going through, and they were measuring what's that max Q and how is it, what kind of impacts is that doing on my vessel? They've specifically told me what they want to learn. And because they've specifically said, I want to learn this, and they didn't speak in terms of I want the parts. They spoke in terms of I want to study this. And because of that, they learned a lot more from that temperature scan than the other guys did. And that's because they're not thinking in terms of playing Kerbal Space Program. They're thinking in terms of, in real life, if I wanted to study this specific thing, how would I go about doing it? And what sorts of things would I need to scan for? What sorts of parts, or I guess what sorts of experiments would I need to have in order to study that specific thing? So let me show you the resource, not the resource, my community career tracker, let's say. This is a private sheet that I keep all the records on and stuff. I'm just gonna show you a really quick look at it, and then you can kind of get a feel for how it's working. Now, this is my back end, and this is not the full details. This is my broad details. I have another little bullet point sheet that's talking about specifics. So when you see something like 40% or 10, 15%, when you see those percentages, those are mostly a broad look at that category, but they are not focused on the specific thing that they are looking on. So you might have 10% biology knowledge, but your 10% is something totally different than somebody else's 10%. It's all being kept track of privately. But the important thing here to keep in mind is that those broad categories, these RPOs who are having higher percentages have designated and told me specifically what they are studying. And that's the difference. I can tell you right now that the 20% that I see for Grace Research is almost the exact same experiment that, the one right below them dictated, right? It's almost the exact same experiment that the one right below them has. But the difference here is that one of them was talking and looking for that specific thing. They were looking and testing something specific, and their experiments went for that thing that was specific, and they gained more knowledge as a result of it. And so I've put this in the handbook already. You can see that if you download the handbook, you'll see the section already. But we've got things like hot and cold, sure, but cosmic survival, nature and chemistry, fluid dynamics. We're talking about things like electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, material compression. How small can you make things? Who knows? How do you fit something in a certain space? How do you transfer that stuff to another space? Is there a specific process that goes with that kind of thing? Robotics and automation. These are things that we don't really know of yet. But as you study more stuff, like as you study things like mechanical engineering and electrical engineering, and you gain more perspective on how certain elements and how certain things work together, you start to gain knowledge in robotics just based on what you know about the areas that have to do with robotics, right? Those types of things are big deals. So instead of thinking about, I want the mystery goo on my shuttle. Okay, well, here's the thing about the mystery goo. It's a mystery to me unless you tell me what's in it. All right? The important thing here is I have to know what you're studying. It's not good enough that you know. You're like, I want a temperature scan, because I'm gonna get this. If I don't know about it, it's just like Dungeons and Dragons, right? If the GM doesn't know what you're doing, you can't take credit for it. So be specific. Tell me what you want to learn, and then we can make the craft that goes along with that, right? This is a role-playing game. It's a very different career mode. Not just for me, but for others that want to play the game with me, right? This is a very big collaborative effort that it's taking a super long time in my time. I'm hiring help. I'm trying to get hiring help in here so that I can have more of the administrative stuff done by some other people so that I can focus more time in the game. Because right now, I can't scale this as much as I did. I will admit that I've bit off more than I can chew. So I can't scale this very well. That's why we've capped the number of RPOs at 100. And right now we're at almost 70. And I'm struggling to get there. I think with a couple people helping me here in the future to sort of get the details worked out on contracts and to manage the different sheets and the orders of things and group them together with orders that make sense, etc. that's going to help me a lot to start pushing out content faster. But I think the big thing that really will help me is that if people understand how to play the game a little bit better. And I'm hoping that this video will help you play the game a little bit better if you're interested in it. It's important that when you create an organization and then you're given that $50,000 in cash or whatever, when you come in and you say, I want you to do this for me, don't just say, I want that, and leave it so simple. Because what's going to happen here, what I'm going to start doing here, is I'm going to start denying your contracts unless it makes sense. I'm going to start denying your contracts because it's taking me so much time thumbing through, I guess that's my pointer finger, thumbing through the contracts that are just not specific. They're not well thought out. And again, I said it in the beginning, I'll say it now, this is my fault. I haven't properly told you about how this is. I mean, I've given you lots of clues, things like this is a very different career and don't think about parts, and you gain knowledge for things. And I usually ask you challenge questions. The challenge questions are meant to sort of narrow down what you're studying. But at the end of the day, I think I'm really hoping that this video limits how many challenge questions I need to give, because that's taking up a lot of time. The other thing I'm going to ask, because this is another kind of mistake that's sort of happening, I realize that we all have busy lives. I realize that, and I'm not rushing you at all. But there are some contracts that are still in limbo because I've reached out to you to respond to it, and it's been nearly a week and I've gotten no reply. So what I ask of you is, if you don't have the time to respond in a reasonable amount of time, like within a day, 2 days on a DM, I mean, as much as I don't want to do it, I'd ask that you withdraw from the game, because it's going to create a lot of like this back and forth and uncertainty. Your mission might be perfectly suited to ride share with someone else, and so I'm like really hoping you respond so that I can do theirs, when in reality I delayed their mission for no reason. All right, so there is going to be a lot of things that I'm going to have to do in the future here to really make this sustainable, both from a content creator perspective as well as a game management perspective. And a lot of that is not going to necessarily find you well, and I'm sorry about that. And a lot of that's going to start, I don't want you to feel like I'm being a jerk. I don't want you to feel like I'm trying to be mean. I'm not. I just have a lot to manage, much more than I thought I would, which is humbling and terrifying at the same time. But there's going to be a lot of things where I'm just going to have to start telling you no, just bluntly. I won't do that for you. And it's a lot of that is going to have to do with you just flat out not being very specific in what you want. I can launch the mission and make money in the game. That's cool, but that's not that fun. Like I love, some of your contracts are great. Episode 6, seriously, watch this. This is gonna work. Like you're gonna be like, hey, wait a minute, that's so simple. And yet the knowledge they gain from it is not only extremely good and specific, but it's patent worthy, like straight out of the box, patent worthy, right? So like, it matters, okay? How you structure your contracts and being specific about what you want to study, not about the parts on your craft. I don't care about your parts. I don't care about the parts. Like the fact that you want a Geiger counter on your thing doesn't matter to me. That's not something you should even include. You want to study radiation? Cool, I'm gonna put a Geiger counter on there because you want to study radiation, right? Why do you want to study radiation? Well, I want to see how it affects certain materials. Cool, what kind of materials are you looking to study today? Be as specific as you can. I don't care if you write me a novel. Be as specific as you can about what you are looking to do, because that will limit how many back and forths we have. It will narrow down what your contract is, and ultimately you will gain a lot more knowledge in the game. Like your organization will gain a lot more knowledge that progresses you towards bigger and better things later. Because specialty experiments, things like the multispectral scanner, resource scanners, right? That stuff requires you to have sufficient knowledge to even use it. I'm not gonna let you just search for, I'm just gonna unlock the research scanner and I'll know where all the stuff is. How in the world do you know how to differentiate where that stuff is if you've never had a surface sample before? If you have no experience in your company's history of working with these different materials, you have zero mining background, but you just know where everything is because you used a scanner that's in the game. Don't think of it in terms of parts. Think of it like real life, right? What do you need to know to do the task? And if you don't know enough yet, study what you need to study so that you can do it. Okay? I'm hoping this makes it clearer. I really am. And again, I apologize for how unclear that may have been to many of you, to most of you. I really, really hope that this improves the game, and I'm hoping this video finds you well. Thank you so much for playing. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. And again, if you're not in the Discord server yet, you're missing out. Keep an eye on KNN. Keep an eye on the news. There's a Kerbin news channel in our Discord. There's some news stories that are released that are current events that are happening on the planet, and also some of them might give you clues to the future. Just saying. I'm gonna slip them in. Take it easy. Bye-bye.